Hi. I think we're all ready to rock. Yeah, we are. Hi there. My name is Christopher Runsman. Run, see, man. So, welcome to One Page Story Extravaganza podcast episode. What episode are we on? Yeah, I think it's 180. I have to look it up. That's crazy. 130, 180. Holy camoli. Okay, good start. Okay, so I get inspired by suggestions or ideas that come my way. I produce at least one finished one story or one page story every day. I start and sometimes finish these live Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. EST. You know this if you're here already. Today I'm on page 179 of on day 191 of 2023. So I got a little bit of catching up to do if I'm going to be 200 pages on the 200th day of the year, but we'll get there. If you like what we're doing here, it helps me if you like and subscribe and turn on the subscriptions as well. I've got our page up from yesterday. Its title is Ad Infinitum. Ad Infinitum. It's Latin for and on forever. The suggestion for it was from Jim Lujan. It is Christopher drawing one page of Christopher drawing one page of Christopher drawing one page of Christopher drawing one page. So that fits. We got Dee Dee already saying hi. Hi, Dee Dee. How you doing? That drawing is awesome. Hey, thanks very much. Okay, so I did this page using ballpoint pen and white paint and white ink. So, and then I put it in the computer and got a razzly dazzly. So it was 8.5 by 11. So if you want to see the original artwork for this page, you can go to my Patreon. I post all the original artwork on there as well as the pages themselves. The links below the video. It's like $3 a month. It really helps out. But big thanks to my two big main Patreons who are James and David. It's super appreciated. If you've got a one-page story, idea, or suggestion, feel free to put it in the chat live or in the video's comments afterwards. But let's get on to today's page. I'm going to look, and I've already picked one out of the book today, in the Book of Tricks, as Dee Dee calls it. Dee Dee says she's got some family coming, so until they get here, it's good. And hi, Chris, how you doing? So we got, I'm really excited because I got a special guest today. Somebody said something yesterday, and it's their fault. So here we are. I'm really pleased to introduce Mr. Joshua Kemble to the stream for the first time.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Just, do you want to tell people?
Sorry, what?
Do you want to tell people what you do?
Yeah. So I've been doing illustration and graphic design for about 20 years now. And I just left my position as an art director where I worked for almost a decade and am now kind of going to be rediscovered. But when I'm not doing those things like hustling and doing art for a living, I'm working on graphic novels like Jacob's Apartment and Two Stories, both kind of in the slice of life, sort of independent, autobiographical realm of comics. And yeah, and that's what I'm actually going to be working on whilst listening to your stream. The only difference that right now is just I'm on your stream, but I used to listen to you while working. So it's a fun thing. Thanks for having me on.
I completely meant to pull out your books, show them in the camera, and of course, last second I forgot.
No worries. That's okay.
But we both really enjoyed Jacob's Apartment. So if awesome. Anybody that's I put the name in the chat. Yeah, and I used semicolon instead of an apostrophe. But if anybody wants to check that out, please do. It's really good. It truly is awesome. Really good. And I mean, Lori had a really fun thing to say about that in that for a person who doesn't regularly read comics, you have a sophisticated level of visual and textual language in the book. And right at the beginning, and she just looked at it once. Okay, how do I read this? And she looked at it and she goes, "Oh!" And then she was right in the book.
That's
as
awesome.
soon as that hit her, she was, and yeah, and that's why she did the review that she did. That's on the stream. So because she was so
Yeah, that
taken
meant
by
a lot to me that you guys did that. That's very cool. Being an indie cartoonist is like I gotta appreciate every single reader, and so I very much appreciate that. And for anybody out there who's like supporting indie comics, like leaving a positive review or like leaving a review video or something like that, like it goes a long way.
Yeah.
Speaking of, people should probably be mentioning the one-page comic as well. But, it's great. It's a really good example of like a variety of styles, applied to one-page comics that are really creative and kind of outside of the box. It's a real joy to kind of read. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, buddy. That means a lot.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's a strange paradigm to sort of open up to the larger world that these days. That's the stage that I'm at, and it's a lot of adaptation, but it's all healthy adaptation. It's like
nice.
the Big Adventure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But sort of fits into what's that? Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure, even.
I want that bike, Pee-wee. Nobody ever quotes Patrick, or what's his name? Is it Patrick? No, it's
I can't remember. I know what you're saying though. Yeah.
Nobody ever quotes him. Everybody always quotes Pee-wee.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got like
Francis.
I'm a loner and a rebel daddy. Yeah. Oh, that's it, Francis. Yeah.
It's not your bike, Francis. I want that bike, Pee-wee. Such a great representation of spoiled rich kid who's 45. I think we lost you for a sec, buddy.
Oh, you did?
You still there? Oh, yeah, you're back. Okay.
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, so today I picked, before I get too ahead of myself, Jewel Shrimp Dragonfly, 3 words from the Dee Dee's prompt bag. Dee Dee's prompt bag of tricks that she has on her stream, and anybody that says, I'll take 3, Dee Dee, and she'll pull 3 words out of a bag, and there you go do something with it. So
nice. Dee Willingham.
Fantastic. So thank you, Dee Dee. We're gonna work on that today. Jewel Shrimp and Dragonfly. Yeah. You said something before we started. You're interested in seeing what my, I guess, weird take on this is.
Well, in a good way, because something I learned back when I used to do t-shirt design, primarily for a living. Like one of the things that would be a good indicator of a good solid t-shirt that would sell pretty well is an idea that's like really clear, but it's not like usually the first solution. And so like, I don't know, coming from like a design and illustration perspective, I always appreciate somebody who's doing a take on something that's not like the total obvious take, like it's a step further. And I like that you kind of challenge yourself with the prompts that you get, from chat and stuff, to take it like one step further or add something additional to it. It's always fun, and I think it adds a lot more of your like authorship to what you're doing.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. So I've got I appreciate that. That's pretty cool. I don't think about it too heavily. I intend to just hey, what am I doing today? And I look at the words and go, what does that give me? Jewel, shrimp, dragonfly. And so that's why I just start drawing, and I'll figure the rest out on the go. Like it's the rest of it out on the fly. So that's generally, there's no secret sauce to it. It's really flying by the seat of my pants. So I wish
I think that's what we're all doing. So
I think so. So the topic I put up for today, and I'm really kind of excited to have you join me to chat about this, because I think we both have the same kind of mindset here. So I put up a page a day keeps the doctor away. And what I'm referring to for that as a topic is that my wife and I were talking about this, and since I'm home working in the studio and no longer being, guy at bookstore, I feel a lot better. Like I feel a lot healthier, and it has an awful lot to do with the fact that creative output is an integral part of me. And like integral being a really operative word, it's essential that I get all of this out, and it gives me a greater sense of equilibrium. And so my headspace is pretty set on that. But I'm curious to hear how other artists relate, because I know for me, a sense of stability and comfort in my day-to-day has something to do with creative outlet or expression.
Yeah.
Where do you sit on that?
Well, I mean, so to me, comics are, I don't think, I've always had this opinion. I don't think comics are something people really choose to do. I think you're either kind of going to do them or you aren't. And so I think that if I'm not working on comics, I just tend to be super unhappy. And that's just been who I've been for, a decade or so. So I feel like, like working on creative outlets, definitely keeps my mental health in a stable place. But also keeps me somewhat relevant, for work and stuff like that as well. So, but it's an interesting thing. And I think the outlet of it is important, to talk about things you feel led to talk about. Like if you feel like you're kind of put on this earth to do something, I think you're not going to feel right about yourself unless you're doing the thing you feel like you were put here to do, which I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people will kind of shut off the thing they feel like they were put here to do in lieu of other things. And I, whether for ill or for good, I just am not good at not doing this thing.
Do you think it's so much because, like, I for me, it's not a question of choose or not to choose. It's coming out. Like, I got to do it on some level.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah,
it's
pretty much.
And it's hard to explain to the normals, or it's hard to explain to people that don't have that same compulsion. Like, it's it's a different headspace for sure, and I recognize that. But at the same time, you're always sort of hard pressed to make sense of that to folks around you. At least I find. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, luckily.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, luckily I'm married to, an illustrator. So that's really been huge because, like, she gets it. She kind of understands the idea of art and, like, the value of this stuff. And, also, like, appreciates it. And even in, like, what I'm going through right now, it's like, with freelance and stuff like that, like, she's been, by my side since we were in college together. And so I think she understands, like, that, I'll be able to drum up some work and we'll make this work, in the circumstances that we're in. And it's like, that is insanely awesome, because you're right. Like the what I like to call, like, muggles, like, and that's no insult to people who don't do art and stuff. It's like people who don't do art, do their stuff. But to those of us who do art, it can feel like a very big separation between, people who get it and don't, when it comes to, like, creative expression. And it's like it makes a massive difference having people in your life who actually understand what you're kind of on about and what you're doing.
It's funny. We had a conversation recently on the stream here about if when Jim Luan comes on and asks the question of the day, and he always gives these arbitrary, ridiculous numbers about it. Well, I'm sure you've seen it. And
Jimmy the Lutes, J-Boys.
J-Boys. So Devin's laughing at your use of muggles. One of his questions was, would you marry an artist? And there's this resounding no. Most people.
I did.
and I think it has a lot to do with it is a fantastic gift when you have somebody that gets it in your life, and so some of us feel very blessed like that, but it's a real rarity to have somebody that is also a creative, I think. That you can share share your life and your creative life with. And I think that most people don't have that, right? So that's really, really cool.
Yeah,
it's
I love
really
it.
Cool. I know with Lori, with my partner, she's very incredibly supportive. I've never met anybody that's so supportive and encouraging. And
and she seems like she's, a really big fan of books too. So I think that is a big help, right? To have somebody who gets what you're trying to make, I think that's helpful, like it would be tough if it was somebody who didn't really appreciate art or read or anything like that. I think for somebody to wrap their head around the kind of wackiness of what we're doing,
Well, I gotta admit, like we probably wouldn't end up with those people anyways.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
for sure.
Chris says, I'm not a muggle. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator too. Not doing graphic design now, but drawing and coloring, teaching English.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody that's seen Chris's work that would consider her to be a muggle at all. And she's very talented. So yeah,
for sure.
It's an interesting thing though. Like, the larger world out there and how they really don't get, many of these people really don't get how and absolutely necessary it is for some of us to do what we do.
Yeah.
We can't make sense of it otherwise. And even if it's just some part-time expression thing the world doesn't see around us, we've got to do it, right? It's like the Henry Durger thing, he had to write and draw stories. He had to do it.
Yeah.
Even if the man, who Henry Durger was?
Is he the guy who was making like his own like illustrated kind of like collage / like fiction book, and he had like made this entire thing, and it was like years after his years after his death, he kind of became well known. But he was kind of like working as like a janitor or something. Am I remembering the right guy?
That's exactly the guy.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I relate actually a lot with that, because I do kind of feel like there's an element of what I do that I would be doing regardless. Even if tomorrow I had to like work at McDonald's or something, I would still be working on these weird comics,
Is it specifically, do you think it's specifically comics or storytelling that's your call? Do you think, or is it just artistic expression?
I think it's expression. I think comics are a huge part of it, because it's like the thing I love the most. But I love doing music. I love doing things that are authored work. I like participating in things I love. And I feel like I never feel right if I'm not a participant. It's just kind of a weird thing that's like baked into the cake of who I am. And again, for better or ill, who knows? Like, because I know some people who are like really content to go to like a 9 to 5 and like clock out, and that's their existence, and like they're perfectly happy. So I'm not trying to make a claim like it's some sort of superiority thing, because it's not. To me, it's just a necessity. And again, it's what I kind of feel called to do. So, yeah. But the main thing is comics, for sure,
Well, it's an important distinction that you made about it's not a who's better, who's worse thing. I think that we have way too much of this in society. I think that there's way too much of, so-and-so's really smart. And, okay, but this person can walk up to any automobile and completely tear it apart and put it back together, and it runs just as fine as it did before.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's actually a really good example. Yeah, that's a huge example to me, because I am an idiot when it comes to cars. Like, my wife actually knows more about cars than I do. I've had like a check air pressure low thing on my car for like 2 or 3 days, and I think I did the air pressure right. I don't know. And I actually just told my wife, because I'm like that bad with cars, where even tire pressure stuff, I'm like, I don't get it. So like, if you tried to have me be an auto mechanic, I would be I would be the just total noob in the classroom, like probably not getting half of what's being taught, you know. So yeah, it's definitely not a superiority thing because yeah, there's you know, again, like just because somebody's into one thing or maybe an expert on one thing does not make them, you know, a wholesale expert on all things, you know. Yeah.
Well, I think I was talking to Janet, one of our friends at the stream here, Janet Young, and I was referencing Sir Ken Robinson. Do you know of his talks? He did a bunch of TED talks.
I don't know Sir Ken Robinson.
Well, okay, so his whole thing was this is so cute, by the way. I'm on the phone. What am I watching? Wait, I'll get my glasses. Yes, indeed, Riri, you got us.
Hi, Riri.
And Josh is working on his book as well as I'm working on whatever today's page is. And please check out Josh's stream to see his regular page-to-page work that he's doing for the process of his new graphic novel. It's fantastic.
Yes, in full disclosure, my stream is all over the place. So, you know, I am consistently working on right now, you know, this graphic novel for Turner Publishing, and that's called Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. It's like a historical fiction book, but it's like I also will like do commentary on videos while I'm working. I'll play live games of Risk every once in a while. I do weird stuff on my stream, but it's a lot of fun and it's a fun community. And, you know, it's kind of tied in with like the Artcasters, which is how we met Chris. And through, you know, I think Chris reached out to Scott first. And so, yeah, we're kind of in this little crew, but yeah, just giving people warning. It's not just art on that channel. It's all over the place.
So one of the 500 years from now pages, the suggestion was somebody had made was 500 years from now, scientists will understand, or scientists will come to understand the world of Kremlin. And that page was in reference to so I incorporated that Josh was the imperious leader of in the future of the Kremlin people. But what it all actually was contextualized within a board, which was contextualized in the game of Risk.
So yeah, that was one of the funnest things I ever saw. Like it was, and I keep saying funnest, which is not a word, but yeah, that was a really fun thing that really made my day when you did that page. It was hilarious.
Is that right?
Yeah,
it's coming together. So that tends to be how I look at everything. Like as I'm drawing this dragonfly, and just for whatever reason I put this pattern behind it, I don't know. But I'm also considering the other two words I have to do for this page, which is jewel and shrimp. And I think I'm going to use Jewel, the musical performer. Paul's joined us as well. Hi, Paul. Hi, everybody. If I haven't said hi to you, I'm sorry, but welcome aboard, everybody. For those that are coming in and late, we are joined by Joshua Kemble, or the Kremlinator, as I like to call him. And we're just chatting about, you know, regular creativity. Applies to most people that are probably honestly tuning into this stream. Regular creative output, or the ability to have this sort of form of expression, I think helps everybody to maintain a sense of equilibrium. You know, and like anything else, it's all about, you know, doing everything within moderation, right? But for our, you know, expressive types, artistic types, it really is integral to who we are. Yeah. It's hard to explain to those that are just, oh, I do watercolors all the time too. Yeah. Oh, cool. What are you working on? Well, I did one at the cottage 3 years ago. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. I mean, that's a creative output and that's wonderful, but that's not the level of, you know, creative I'm talking about here. Like there we go. This is the level we're working at. Joshua procreating.
Am I procreating? I already did procreate, but no, no, I don't use Procreate. I use Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop on this project in particular. And then I also like to work traditionally as well. And I might be doing a little more of that on stream now that I am a little more freed up. So I plan on doing some paintings and stuff like that pretty soon as well. But yeah, it's not.
I got a whole bunch of canvases primed and ready to rock. There's some things I got to get done for people, and I'm looking forward to that too. Like it's a strange, here it is, and you can just readily do it because it's just that part of your studio. But no, I got to do all these things. I'll get to it. I will do it. How to incorporate that into the rest of what you do.
That brings me to a question. Do you find that like for me, I was a little overwhelmed a couple days ago or whatever. Paul was saying, can we call non-artists civilians? That's actually a really good one. But I feel like for me, if I have endless possibilities, I was just thinking about this the other day, where as a creative, you have kind of a million paths you could go down, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that for me, weirdly enough, I just become really reliant on lists. And I was kind of curious how you juggle, because you have quite a few things in the oven. You got probably work you're doing for clients. You have commissioned paintings. You have, this book. You have other books that you're working on. For you, I was just kind of curious, how do you kind of juggle it and triage, what's the most important thing to kind of handle in a day? Because you're really consistent with your comic output. It's kind of unbelievable,
Well, I just, so the way my studio is set up is here's the stream, here's the one-page stuff. And then I turn this way, and here is where I'm working on everything else. And so I have everything else on the desk, and then I turn back this way. Hey, let's do the stream. Okay, I got to do that. and then I've got those primed over there on the wall. I'm at the digital part of it, so I can do the. I'm this far away, right? And I'm working on Photoshop, and I'm this far away, and I'm doing whatever other. The business and the stuff. So everything's sort of compartmentalized around me. And it's just and I go, oh yeah. There's no planning. There's no planning at all. It's just, or I'll do things twice at the same time. Like I'm a session judge for the local film festival in London. And so I'll have films playing in my studio right here while I'm working on whatever.
Oh, nice.
And so that I'm able to take in that information while I'm doing other things I need to be doing.
Yeah.
And if I turn this way and I can look over this desk, in the tour I did in my studio shows that the television that we have over here, I can see from my desk. And so I can watch a movie while I'm working. So everything's accommodated for my lack of movement.
That's awesome. My wife likes to have movies playing while she works. I can listen to debates or more text kind of based things, but anything that becomes a movie, I think because of the way I'm wired, I can't really have movies playing in the background. I can have a discussion and that engages my brain while I'm working, but it's anything that's a film with visuals, I can't have that in the background. Whereas my wife can have she really likes working with, a Disney movie or something like that, in the background. And for her, that's that actually helps her get in the zone. Whereas for me, it needs to be a podcast or something like that. But if it's an action movie, even if it's something I've seen a million times, I can't do it. I just can't. I lose focus instantly.
So here's a magical question for her. When she is listening to Disney films while she's working, does she ever just stand up from her desk and start singing along with the soundtrack? Just on, and then suddenly stands up. There's a whole new world. You're like, huh? Okay.
If anyone's standing up and singing, it's usually me in our relationship. But yeah, especially if it's the Little Mermaid, that's my jam.
There's Chris is back. The cats were hungry, and a cat cannot wait. No, that's exactly it. My cats are exactly the same way. Paul says traditional. Okay, Riri said something interesting. Paul said the civilians comment, but then Riri said first you have to define artist, and that's an important thing, right? Like to some people really need that distinction, and and other people have real umbrage about it. Somebody says, "Oh, I'm an artist," and I drew a picture of my brother's dog 3 years ago. Okay, you're an artist. I think that's a self-defining thing. If you define yourself in such a way, who are people to say that you're not?
Yeah.
I had a hard time defining myself as an artist at all. Like,
I tend to call myself a cartoonist, which is like a more kind of different thing. Or I'll call myself like a graphic designer or illustrator. And I am an artist, but it's like I just forget to use that term because that term's so slippery anyway. I don't know. If I could define artists today, I would retire because I would have outdone like every philosopher in history. I think we all know what art is when we kind of see it or feel it, but it's like very subjective and it's very slippery. I don't think there's any like solid definition of art, I think it has something to do with intention, but I don't know. Do you have a definition for art, Chris?
Oh, I think that there's we had a big debate about this when I was in high school, and that was it's something that's aesthetically pleasing, which sounds great, but then everybody goes, what does aesthetically pleasing mean? The whole argument just shuts down. Like it's just okay. That's challenging.
Yeah, or is like Guernica like that's not aesthetically pleasing, but I think most people would think that's art, and then that opens up that can of worms. Yeah, it's kind of an old tough conversation to like pin down. I think it comes down to like, I think Christopher's right about that. Like, dude, if you guys consider yourself an artist, like you're probably art,
I think that there are those people though that have the austerity part of it. They've got this of course I'm an artist, and okay, you do you, but I never put stock into that. I've never understood that. I think there's too much self and too much weight in this sort of assessment of what's artistic qualification on the chart. You know what I mean? I think that's an awful lot.
Yeah.
And honestly, get making something. Quit going on about it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Some of those people. I'm trying to keep up, and I'm sorry I'm behind. Paul says traditional. I can no longer cope without an undo button. Very much a digital artist at this point, Paul. Riri's asking, have you recorded yourself Adobe Photoshopping and that's on playback? No, he's working live, Riri.
Yeah. This is like a live. Yeah.
In the same
so
as when
right now what I'm doing is yeah. So we're all working on art live. This is a page 77 for a graphic novel that I have due pretty soon. So I need to haul rear end on it.
You're moving on this book. You're really moving on it.
Yeah. Trying. I wish I moved as quickly as you, Christopher. You're very fast. It's kind of incredible. We're all pretty, like, everybody in the Artcasters community is pretty stunned with your speed and output, and quality too. It's like really incredible.
Well, that's very nice, and thank you. But I think that we all work at our whatever paces, right? Like I think it's everybody is going to do what they're going to do, and for me it was I didn't have a lot of time because my ability to make anything was after work, after family, everybody's gone to bed, and how much can I get done until I need to go to bed too? And so that sort of taught me to, expedite the whole process.
Yeah.
So I think that it's speed through force.
I like it. So it's kind of necessity.
Yeah, speed by necessity is far better. It's far better. So then we've got Chris says, I listen to the streamers I follow as I color, draw, paint, or crochet. See, there we go. There's another person who works and listens at the same time. Philip says he used to work with a movie playing in the background for years, but can't seem to do that anymore. And Devin is now singing from Frozen.
Nice. Yeah, it's weird. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go on.
I was just saying there's an interesting thing with the process, where I think some people can listen to like the soundtrack to a movie, some people can do music, some people like for me, like Christopher's stream is great. I think a lot of people in the chat probably would agree, but it's great to do work too, and yeah, I always find that really interesting, like the things people like working too, and then things people find distracting, because like my wife, for instance, like if I were to put on like a political debate or something, and then she was trying to work to like the audio of it, she wouldn't be able to. She would, yeah.
No? Is it when she gets swept up in it and she's up on top of the chair going, I disagree?
No, she actually just gets bored with that stuff. For me, I find it interesting, but it's like, it's not for everybody. It's like, I think it's almost like some people like, watching boxing matches or something. Like for me, that's what it is. It's like the type of boxing match I like to watch, but it's like, I wouldn't want to watch a boxing match while I'm working on art. I'd get distracted, and also I hate violence, so it's like I don't think I'd be into that. Yeah.
Not a fan of pugilism, are you?
Of what?
Pugilism. That's what they call boxing. That's the Victorian term.
Okay. I didn't actually know that. I learned a new word.
Yeah, I am a nerd.
That's a
Chris
great
says that
word.
he's a slow maker, but the work that Chris produces is fantastic. If you get a chance, take a look at her Instagram. Really great stuff there.
Nice.
Yeah, there's an awful lot to be said for finding those outlets, for finding that opportunity for yourself. If you feel so compelled that you get a sense of enjoyment, a sense of sort of like an emotional response, a capitulation of completion when you work on a drawing or a painting or a sketch or a doodle, or play around with with clay or whatever it is that somebody is engaged in that creative outlet. Writing, of course, dance, singing, but it's healthy. I mean, there's something really healthy to that, and I don't think that we encourage that enough. That's why I referred to Ken Robinson earlier. He passed away during COVID, unfortunately, but he's got some TED Talks that I highly recommend people check out. He was a huge advocate for a more ergonomic form of retooling of our education system. And the reason for that is that you're going to have kids that, as much as you try to enforce upon them that they read these books, memorize these facts, and write them down in an examination, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
It's simply never going to happen. But if you give that kid tools and a basic underlying idea of how these tools work, watch them make, watch them repair, watch them, build, right?
Yeah.
And we need to support that. We need to recognize that earlier than we are, because saying that when these kids go off to college is too late.
Yeah.
Right? It's just too late. There's got to be recognition and avenues for these people at an earlier stage, so that we don't lose their soul.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
He uses an example of the lady. There's a young lady, and when this is just post-World War II, okay, and she sways back and forth, and in class, and she's constantly humming and listing about And so the teacher calls the mother into school and says, we have to do something about your daughter. There's something wrong with her. And so we're going to go and talk in front of the principal. And so the principal watches the young lady, says, okay, well, you know, he's already watched her before the mom has come in, and he's made some observations. And when mom comes to this meeting, he takes the teacher and mom out into the hallway. But before they leave his office, he turns on the radio. And he takes mom and teacher out into the hallway. And he says, now, he gives it a minute. And he says, I want you to look in the doorway. And they look in the doorway. And there she is dancing about in his office to the music. And he turns to the mother and says, there's nothing wrong with your daughter. She's a dancer. Put her in dance school.
Nice.
And that's the choreographer of Cats we're talking about. If it wasn't for somebody recognizing that child's natural affinity for expressive output, we never would have had Cats. And all
interesting.
The other
I mean, of Weber's stuff, I personally didn't like Cats, but I still feel it. Like, that was a impactful thing. I'm just saying, like, man, that is one of my pet peeves.
Jesus Christ Superstar all the way. It's Jesus Christ Superstar all the way for me.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
no, I think that's
as Roman soldiers.
Yeah, but that is a great, that is a really incredible story, and I think that's a really good example of, like, you know, I think recognizing neurodiversity is really important too, you know, and I think that's that's kind of cool, you know, because not everybody's built the same way. It doesn't mean, you know, their values any less, you know, or, you know, people just think differently, and that's kind of good. That makes our world richer, you know. So yeah,
it's one of those. It's sort of one of those powerful identifiers of creative expression and creative output is, like we talked about earlier, integral to some people. It's an internalized process that's happening in the same way as other people like to run. They like to run, you know, and other people really enjoy sitting to crosswords. Like, they're all just as equally valid. But how do we recognize that? And how do we identify that? And how do we restructure the system that exists here? Now, you're in the States and I'm in Canada, but there's still inherent similarities between our two countries and how we look at and how we associate.
Yeah.
It's all capitalism. It's all the same, right? And we encourage the whole be a round peg in a round hole as everybody else. We don't necessarily mean to understand that there's certain people that are called to different kinds of actualities in their life, and different forms of, you know, service to others, and different forms of service to themselves. And we don't support that and encourage that enough, I don't believe.
No, I don't think we have, like, really great systems set up for the pursuit of, like, the humanities. I think it's just, like, you know, again, I think a lot of our focus is on, like, you know, STEM, and that's good, you know, like, but I do feel like, you know, in a better society, I think there would be a much more kind of, like, I don't know, like, a better kind of way to make a living as an artist than just sort of monetary return. Just because I think that, you know, when you mix commerce with art, too often you kind of end up with just mediocre crap that kind of pleases people for a day, and then that's done. Every once in a while you have a gem get through, you know, but in general, it's like, you know, it's kind of a soul killing, art killing thing. And it's weird because I'm also a person who, like, I'm not against capitalism, but I think there need to be other things than capitalism for things that really shouldn't rely on capitalism, you know. That's my own take, you know, on it. But yeah.
No, you know, and there's validity in that. There's so much that we can encourage more from that doesn't have to have some sort of economic response to it. Sometimes it's important for a civilization to just have its cultural aspects and maintain the integrity of its cultural aspects. That's why films in the 70s were so important, like Soylent Green, or more importantly, Fahrenheit 451. I mean, that's a prime example of Fahrenheit. 451 degrees Fahrenheit is what paper burns at. And so that the whole premise of that film, and subsequently the book it was from, is outlawing of books, outlawing of general knowledge for people, and book burners were a regular part of society. And what a terrifying concept that is.
Yeah.
We've had multiple examples of that in science fiction since, but it's a tricky thing. So, there's a lot to be said for trying to figure out ways to identifiably enable people to engage in those pursuits that are core to their personality, core to their individual being.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I love that book too. And Bradbury, just like one of my favorites, in general. So that's awesome.
I think we read a lot of the same things, you and I.
Yeah, I have a suspicion there's a little bit of crossover there, as well as with some music. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun thing when somebody else references a band, you're like, oh.
Yeah. You do it all the time. I'll be like, oh man. So it's interesting, man. So, okay, you got to walk us through what part you're on now, Christopher, on your one pager.
Oh, well, so I've got the introduction point of the dragonfly here. And so the second shot that I'm bringing in is, so my head goes off as creatively as I'm in the point of producing the page as I go along. I don't have a structure per se. I don't work it all out in advance. It really is the reason that I like the challenge of somebody else suggests something and I don't think about it before I do it, is that autonomic response, that whole it spills out and it goes the organic flow of it from, oh, that makes me feel like turning this way. That makes me feel like turning that way. It'd be terrible if I was a driver, but it works pretty good for making pages.
I like that. So, that's a really good practice too, because it keeps you kind of loose and agile, Yeah.
Well, Monday night, I've talked about this on my stream before, and a lot of times people don't know what I'm referring to, and that's okay, because hopefully somebody in London might tune into the stream and go, oh, the gym's tonight, and run downtown. But I advocate that if people are interested in story, or interested in creative self-expression, that they take part in a jam, some kind of jam, a painting jam, a comic jam, a live drawing jam, and engage with others. And if you're able to, in the course of engaging with those others, force yourselves to have to work together on the same things, you are going to completely jump out of your comfort zone. And so one of the things that we have with the London Comic Jam is that somebody draws the first panel and writes their name on the back and slides the page into the middle of the table. And the next person that grabs that page does the second panel, third panel, fourth panel, until the page is done. Next page, right? So there's 8 or 9 pages going on around a table if you've got 8 or 9 people. And I think our record is 32 pages being worked on simultaneously.
That's awesome.
But the direction, the story, the choices made across all of these pages is so ridiculously diverse. You've got kids drawing stick figures. You've got adults drawing stick figures. You've got other people. We were making a reference last night that the tattoo artists that come out to these events will spend 3 hours drawing one panel. And the most beautiful, absolutely polished gray tones abounding. Like, it's just the most finished drawing, while somebody else beside them is drawing in a far more primitivistic approach, and they've done 19 pages. Like they've done a panel on 19 pages, And the only real rule other than, keep the effing and the jeffing to yourself and cool it, leave your sexual socio hang-ups at home. But those are my two big rules. And because it's all ages. There's kids there. And there's such fantastic opportunities that you will be afforded by working on a comic book page with a child.
That's awesome.
You'll have this existential dialogue in your panel about the meaning of existence. You're talking about Sartre. You're I'm into it. The next kid goes, I could see that guy's bum.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's really great. I mean, some of the most fun I have drawing is if I draw with my kid, and it's like, oh, we're gonna draw a dinosaur. Okay, draw him stepping on somebody. Okay, whatever. And the things that will be thrown out as just suggestions are so fun, and free. It is like a nice little exercise. Give me like 2 seconds. I'll be shortly back. So yeah. All right. Here, I'll leave.
You want me to drop you out for a second?
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I can just leave Philip's lovely portrait in my stead.
Great.
So I'll be back.
I'm gonna pull up some of the stuff in the chat then.
Good.
Devin says Soylent Green is people. It's people. Yeah, the great Charlton Heston line, eh? Soylent Green. Yeah. Oh, so good. Loving your dragonflies, Chris. Thanks, Devin. I'm allergic to Soylent Green. I just found out the reason that I've had this red bite right here is that when Lori and I go for a daily walk, and I noticed one day I keep walking through spider webs. This is ridiculous. And then by the end of that walk, I'm like, what the heck? And I could feel that I've been bitten a few times under my hat. And it's a spider. And I'm allergic to spider bites, I guess. So now it's dissipating. I put stuff on it all the time, but it has been a week of ouch. So that's what was giving me headaches for the first couple of days. And I appreciate the people that were trying to say, is it a concussion? What should you be sitting down? So that's very nice of people. Dee Dee says, thumbs up, everybody. I love that though, Janet. That's getting a star. Soylent Green, there's a product a year ago in WM. I'm not sure what that is. I called Soylent. Oh, you freaked out. I don't blame you. Do you think they had
the Soylent? I can't believe they actually did that.
Isn't that great? Like, do you think they had any understanding of that at all? Like what?
Yeah. I would love to be in the boardroom when that was presented.
Especially if the chairman, I would love if the chairman of the board sounded and looked like Charlton Heston too. Just for that extra little thing. I can't believe we're calling it Soylent. It's so good.
It's people.
Chris says that they hate spiders. Oh, I had no idea that WM still stands for Walmart. I'm going down to the WM today.
Nice. I had no idea.
Phil,
like as a corporation and how they treat people and stuff, not a fan, but I shop at Walmart, dude. I'm in a very lower class status, money wise, so I'm not above the Walmart. Is all I'm saying.
No, not in mine. I like to dress in a suit when I go to Walmart just to throw them off.
I like that idea of dressing in a suit to go to Walmart. That would be a really good bit.
If you can walk around dressed up like you've just stepped off a yacht, and walk through the rows of Walmart and go, darling, let's not forget we need to pick up the cat litter, and have that whole Mr. and Mrs. Powell thing going on.
Yeah, I like it. I dare say, good sir, do you mind placing these in bags? Thank you, sir.
I'm looking for the baby wipes. Yeah. You gotta have fun with things, man. That's for sure. I picked up. I go to the art supply section at Walmart. I go to the art supply section everywhere I go. But
I love cheap art supply sections. You and I have this in common. You'll see this when I paint too, like on stream. But like, I don't use like really nice acrylics or anything like for these things. I use just like out of the tube, just primary colors and then see where it goes. And I find a lot of freedom in that. And I remember when we had you on Artcasters, you were talking about your like you'll kind of use like art supplies from like a cheap art supply section, and I'm like, I am all about that. Like I actually think it can be a really good practice, because I've seen a lot of people who are too married to the medium and really restrict their possibilities. Like, you know, painters quite often, really good painters usually restrict their palette to like 16 colors max, you know, and it's interesting seeing, like, you know, younger painters where they have like every color in the rainbow, and it's like you're actually kind of losing some of the ability to paint by having that, you know. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my opinion on it.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Riri says the product of Soylent was in a pale green bag with dark green writing. They just leaned in. They just leaned in on that Soylent product.
Yeah, I remember being really mystified when that thing came out. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Walmarts near me are actually pretty nice and clean. My Walmart is great. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It has nice people. You know who loves Walmart is Janet. Janet has always got great stories about how she likes to skip through the aisles at Walmart and hug everybody she sees. Which
really?
Not at all. I shop Walmart. Right now the groceries are even cheaper than No Frills. I only go to Walmart for Grey Poupon.
Only there for my Dijon. No, I'm not above Walmart.
Chris knows what No Frills is. Anybody in Canada knows what No Frills is.
What is No Frills?
It's just a grocery store. It's we've got No Frills, A&P, Metro, you know, Loblaws, Dominion. We've had all kinds of very Canadian grocery stores, but they're just grocery stores.
Well, I mean, the name No Frills, though, I think it just wouldn't be obvious enough for like the US. Like, I think in our markets would be like, I don't understand. What if I wanted to dress with frills or something? You know what I mean? I think people would just, it would get killed before it ever became it's just too clever for a store name, you know.
So everything at No Frills is yellow and black lettering on a yellow, like a flat yellow branding. There's no frills to it. There's nothing to it. It's the most basic, generic, low-priced mass consumption material that you can get, and it works. It's got great savings and great possibilities. On tiers of grocery stores, it would be bottom tier, and then, you know, second tier stores are things like your mainstream big corporate grocery stores, and then there's your specialty grocery stores, you know, that always has beautiful pyramids of apples piled on a display, you know, that sort of randomness.
Got it.
Now I'm caught up for a second. My closest Walmart is 8 miles away. There's one heap across from it too. I live 8-9 miles away from everything. Chris is in Mexico, if you're wondering, Josh. It's a full grocery store, offers lower price knockoff products. Yeah. Janet loves Walmart, and she loves to buy her Grey Poupon there. No Frills is very yellow. Devin's also in Canada here. A&P was a grocery store here. No Frills is just supposed to be lower price, but now it's not. Well, everything's expensive now. They have a yellow box of macaroni and cheese. Would be a cheaper version of Kraft. Yeah, so it's just generic. It's just generic. It's then there's awesome. No Frills. Yeah. Yeah, there's something to be said for taking basics and making something of them, right? Like, there's something to be said for that, for seeing what you can get out of the most basic of materials. And sometimes those are the pleasant surprises. Like, those are the things that you never would have considered that an output from that would be worthwhile, because, you know, and a lot of people are just concerned about longevity and whatever it is that they're producing. But there's so many ways with fixatives and stuff like that you can take really basic materials and make them last. You can make them last. But the trick is,
and I think that this might just be a personality thing. I think we've spoken about this, but it's like my kid is autistic. I suspect I'm probably autistic as well because I have some tendencies like that. And I have a very weird obsession with guitars where when I'm playing guitar, I don't feel comfortable if I have more than like one effect. Like I like having just clean and distortion, and that's it. And that's one of my favorite things. Yeah, and it's like I don't mind playing with other pedals and stuff like that, but when I'm writing music, I actually feel freer with just two options. And it's kind of the same with this comic, where it's like I literally am using one brush, and that's it, one brush, and
Nice.
I'm seeing what I can get out of one brush for like all of the line work. And I think that limitation for me, I feel a lot of freedom with limitation. And that's just my own weird thing with my personality.
This sort of goes back to the comic jam thing. Anything that pushes you creatively.
Yeah.
By, you've got one panel to make your mark on this narrative, this contextual narrative. You've got one panel to make your mark visually on this page. And at the same time, you want some degree of unity on the page so that it's not like everybody's drawing a particular way, but my part is awesome. And at the expense of people being disconnected from the narrative, maybe. So there's all kinds of things that really challenge you in that regard when you're looking at how you execute anything. And I think that's an interesting thing that you do specifically with this project, because your other books, there's differences from book to book with you.
Yeah, for sure.
There's the underlying Joshishness of it all. Joshishness. And but at the same time, like it's the same with the one-page stuff. As much as it looks like it's different styles, it's kind of just different mediums.
Yeah.
But I feel like, except for, you're right. I do try to challenge different page approaches and stuff like that. But maybe it's because it's me doing it, but I always feel like it looks like something I've drawn. Like it just looks like.
No, you have a distinct style, but your style, is distinct and partially because of the freeness with which you're kind of using multiple mediums and stuff like that. But it always has a look, I think that's one of the things that whenever I've talked to younger artists, that people get really concerned about style. It's usually one of the first questions somebody asks, or one of the first concerns that artists have is, finding their voice or their style. And it's like, your style just kind of is going to happen. Like, regardless, like kind of whether you want it to or not, style just kind of happens. I think you have a very distinctive style, but it's hard to pin down because it's not like a style that's specific to the medium you're using,
Yeah, it's sometimes you have to force the medium to do the thing you want it to.
Yeah.
There's I think that one thing I wish I were more conscious of is applying mediums to story type or story genre. Like if I'm just doing dark stuff, I use these certain heavy inks or something like that, or because I don't do that. And I never think like that. I just, I'm going to draw this one in a blue pen. What is it about? Werewolves? Okay.
Kind of like it.
Werewolves and blue pen. That's what I'm doing today. Like, it's just, I wish I made more sense that way. But Dee Dee had to leave us. Thanks very much, Dee Dee, for hanging out. Josh should show one of his finished colored pages, Dee Dee says.
Oh, on one of these? I can pull one up and give me 2 seconds.
There's just one store out really big called Bara Bara. It's cheap. It's good for emergencies. A&P here in Virginia and New York metro area too. Oh, excellent. Aldi has become the popular alternative here. We're still catching up on the grocery stores. Chris went to a Walmart in Puerto Vallarta. It was very tricky shopping in Spanish and converting pesos to Canadian dollars. You should see Aldi in Australia. Makes our Aldis look like the homeless version. They're so nice. And then Riri, of course, says, I bet.
So I just do stuff like this. This is kind of what the finals look like.
Hold on, let me switch. How can I get? Can I? No, I want it the other way. How do I do it the other way?
I have no idea. I can't see the controls.
It's a little bigger.
But that shows you guys. So that's kind of what the final pages are going to look like on this. This was a panel where it was like all the panels making one big park scene. So, yeah. So that's what the final colors look like.
I watched you working on this page, and I was really taken with it. It's a really, really solid image.
Yeah, it's fun to do those things where you kind of push and experiment a little bit, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Always, right? You gotta go for gold.
Yes.
Speaking of gold, have you tried Old Gold beer? Taste the pride. Yeah.
That's right. Old Gold beer. Those ads are incredible too. For Old Gold. By the way, I'm really excited about your and Jim's next project that's coming up. That's pretty exciting.
Well, it's Jim's project. I just do some silly voices for him, but it's his new film is looks so good. It really does, and I really appreciate it. Felt honored to be asked to be stamping some silly on that. You know, it's
your appearance on Hey Man, How's Your Movie Going was incredible too, because you and Jim are a really good kind of almost like comedic duo. Like it was fun because you're a very like forward person and like very funny, but you kind of play the straight man when you hang out with Jim, and I love it because you kind of know the dynamic you're playing there. I love it. It's just so smart the way you guys engage with each other. I love it. It's very funny.
Jim is one of those people that is so naturally funny. Like he's just so that like there's just this whole sort of but how about this? And it's just so left field. Right, it's so left field, and I love that. I want to pull as much of it out of him as I can because he makes me laugh. Oh Lord, here he is. He's joined us. The two superstars together. Question is, who is the opening act? It was Jim Lewin, but he showed up late.
That's right. That's right. We actually had to open for Jim, and now everybody's going to be disappointed. Like by the time they get to Jim, they'll be like, "Thank God." Oh, we're like the bad opening act now.
We tried doing that song and dance number, but when I tripped and I tripped you up and we fell over and we lost our top hats, it was a mess. It's just a mess.
Yeah, it was a mess. Like one of those weird little, like the little shepherd's cane like appeared and just kind of grabbed one of us and pulled us off stage.
Or what's the Python-esque one? There's a giant boot. Or the hammer is my favorite, where the hammer just comes.
There's the 16-ton thing. Oh yeah, the 16-ton thing smashes people too. Yeah.
So many great little things there. You're getting a lot of really great comments on your page, buddy. I hope you've seen some of these. I've been trying to pop them up.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I'm hoping I'll be able to finish my book. You know. It's going to be interesting. I'm literally at a point where, you know, it's funny. It's like a very familiar place, you know, but it's also a scary place, you know, to be with like a big life change.
Sure.
But it's also very familiar because it's like I've been a hired gun. I've been a cowboy before, okay, but it's like being back on the range. Yeah. I did, and I was wanted, like dead or alive. It was the craziest thing. But anyhow, like it's interesting because it's like, you know, I think this is the path of an artist where it's like, you know, there's going to be seasons of work for sure, and I'm definitely heading back to the Wild West again, and it's like one of those things of like, well, I was settled in this town for a little bit. You know, so it's a little scary, but at the same time, it's like I do have my 6-gun. Like I know this stuff. It's just a little scary to go back out there, but at the same time, I just have to trust my wits and my cowboy the analogy's starting to fall apart, but I think you get
You're
it.
cold, hard steel on your hip. I got nothing.
Exactly.
You've got that whole tip of the hat. Well, man, it's got to be moving on. All those things going on.
Exactly. Yeah. But that is something that I think is like, oh, nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the color pages. I feel good about this book. Like I think this might be one of the better books that I've made, if not the best. So that'll be interesting. I can't wait to get to my 2 stories book 2 as well. So there's a lot of stuff comic wise I'm excited about. Yeah, for sure.
Well, you're at that. We talked about this ourselves. There's a whole thing about when you foray out into the creative world, and without a net type thing, right? Like it forces you to just go for it. If you're going to make it, you're going to make it. Like you're going to just, you know that the work's involved. You've done this before.
Yeah.
But it really is sort of, you got to draw on all those sort of skill sets that you have for self-governance and for creative output and all of those things that that you have inside of you. You've done them because you've done it before for sure, but you're going to go out there and you're going to do fine. But in the immediacy of it, you're kind of like, it can feel a little overwhelming in the immediate, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm trying different things here with smushing. I'm smushing.
I love it. I love that. That's a really interesting template too. That's really cool. It kind of reminds me when I was in grad school, there was this painter who was next to me who did these like beautiful photorealistic paintings, but they were like, really colorful. So there was a lot of color and shadow and stuff like that. But one of the things she would do is also like these crazy textures with using stencils. So she'd have like, like somebody in a room, and then the room would be like this insane wallpaper pattern. And it was always fun to watch, but that's what that actually reminds me of, is just like seeing that template being used is really cool.
I'm always just kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks a lot of the time. And so trying a template out or something of the like, it's just as random as anything else with me. But I like when you can see how people can apply textures and just sort of like the overlapping pattern of like they've painted this lovely brown wash, but then they just this chunky white paint over top of it in this really erratic way. I really like an abstract painter. I'm not really an abstractionist fan, but I really enjoy the painter Anselm Kiefer.
Okay.
And I don't know if people know who that is, but if you don't, look him up. I'll type it in. I'll type it in for people. It's nice. Anselm Kiefer.
Oh, I love Jim's question about rocking a fedora. I used to wear a fedora like almost every day of my school time. I talk about this in 2 stories and the childhood sequences. I was obsessed with Indiana Jones to the point where I dressed as Indiana Jones for the entirety of 3rd grade.
That's great.
Every day I would go to school with an Indiana Jones hat and a leather jacket and a rope that my mom had braided because I wanted a whip, but they weren't going to let me go to school with a whip. And so I literally, before cosplay was a thing, spent every day of 3rd grade dressed as Indiana Jones, asking people to call me Indy. And needless to say, if you imagine a bunch of 3rd graders and potentially bullies and their response to that, what that would be like, that was my 3rd grade. Yes.
I got picked on because when they asked us around the same age, when they asked us in class, what do you want to be when you grow up? There was no doubt in my head that I wanted to be a dinosaur.
Oh, that's a great thing to grow up to be.
But when you say that, what do you want to be when
Yeah.
you grow up? Christopher, dinosaur. Okay, but you can't be a dinosaur. No, dinosaur. I want to be a dinosaur. Like, there's just no doubt. There's no doubt, And, well, what kind of dinosaur?
What? Honestly, Christopher, I'm going to second your third grade self and say right now that would be a great life goal to be a dinosaur. I have no issue with that. I think being a dinosaur would be pretty badass.
I've been randomly caught walking through the streets of my neighborhood, my small hands like this. My son-in-law and we took the.
I feel like we should make a junior joke with our musical taste too. I feel like there's one lined up there somewhere.
Definitely throwing some Dinosaur Junior lyrics.
Exactly.
There's my son-in-law and I took the grandkids trick-or-treating in my neighborhood, and he's dressed up in this inflatable dinosaur T-Rex costume.
Oh, that's badass. I've seen those. Yeah.
And I'm just me walking beside him, and people are just looking at us like, what in the world are these two people doing with these kids? Like, who let those people be in charge of children? And my son-in-law's like, "Roar!"
I love it.
I love it. I love that kind of thing. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we have a lot of dinosaur stuff around the house. This is another advantage of marrying an artist. We have a T-Rex head mounted above our fireplace. We have,
really?
yeah, we got a Velociraptor. Here, let me see if I can sneak this over. I don't know if you can see the T-Rex.
Oh, wow. I think,
is that?
Hold on.
It's like way far away. But it's like right. There's our fish tank. There's a T-Rex right there. It's hard to see, but it's a mounted T-Rex head. My wife and I made an agreement that if we ever got a house, because we were, this isn't a new foray to me. I've been like a starving artist before. And we joked, like, if we ever got a house, we'd have a T-Rex hanging over the fireplace because, in theory, we never thought we'd have a house because we're artists, It's like an artist salary. How's that going to happen? But yeah, when we ended up actually signing a mortgage and getting a house, it's like that's the first thing we went and did was get the T-Rex because we were like, we made a promise. We're living up to that promise of a T-Rex head. And my son has grown up thinking that that's completely normal to just, for your house to have just a T-Rex head on the wall.
There's my first house that I had the red velvet drapes, and I would get down on my knees and I'd come up from behind them. Yep, yep.
Yes.
It made no sense to anyone that wasn't a Twin Peaks fan.
I love that.
I needed a strong enough hanger for these curtains because they were really heavy velvet, right?
Oh, I love it.
So I was designing a funerary facility here in the London area, and a friend of mine's a funeral director, and so he needed the place for all the preparation of bodies. I know it's gross. And so I needed, to do this job for him. And while we're there one day inspecting, the site and how we can have things set up within this 40 by 40 cube and turn it into a multi-floored arrangement for him, I see these rod-looking things. Well, they're coffin handles. Huh. I don't realize at first they're coffin handles because duh. And I went, those are, how much you want for those? And he's like, you can have a pair. I got lots of these. And so I hung coffin handles in my dining room and my living room to hang red velvet curtains on. And absolutely no one got it. Like, no one would know that that's what that was. But
I love it. So it's like equivalent to, I mean, that is the most goth house on the planet right there,
Because people,
I want to listen to Skinny Puppy just hearing about that
little Bauhaus in the background. Nobody got it, and it's all just and all of that just so I could go, yeah, you're right, yeah, more, yeah. So, what do we got? I'm missing some stuff. Philip, when Philip says you just might make it after all, is anybody else here? We're gonna make it happen. Anyways, I'm hearing that theme song from.
Oh, while you catch up on those chats, I'm going to disappear
Tyler
for a second. It's my hour thing, so I'll be right back.
Oh, it is a Mary Tyler Moore reference that he had here. But go ahead, Josh. Go do it. Yeah, go for that. And then Jim's question of the day about fedoras. Paul unfortunately has stepped away from us for a second, but that's that would totally trigger Paul. He's I was surprised by how few hats that Paul has, considering how I always see him wearing a hat. So Devin was confirming Josh's story. Yeah, a dinosaur is the only way to go. And I was so non-specific about what kind of dinosaur I wanted to be. It did not matter to me just to be a dinosaur. You need to splice your genes with some dinosaur DNA from Jurassic mosquito stick and amber. It's simple. It's totally easy. I mean, what's the problem? They could put tails on chickens now. Come on, surely they can turn me into a dinosaur. All right, so here's my two silly dragonfly panels. And it's so the idea with the text to be overlaid in this is that they're so here's the initial image, and it'll be really simple. There's the title space there and a really simple piece of text introducing the story. But then I'm totally going to have people talking like the dragonfly is a helicopter. And so the whole point of my page here is that the jewel of the three that are suggested for today's page is going to be the singer jewel. Just because, I'm hip and relevant like that. Everybody knows Jewel from what, the 90s? Was she a 90s singer?
Yeah, we're very clued in with the kids, like the hip kids. We're very hip.
Bye, Devin. Thanks for coming by.
Cool kids.
Hey, hip cats. What's going on? Can you let us in off your balcony? Bobby's flute is getting wet. Yeah.
Well, Christopher, I'm so honored to be on here. I don't know if I mentioned that. It's just like I really it's funny because I have people who watch my live stream and I'll have them on every once in a while. I haven't really done the whole going on other people's live streams that I listen to, and it's kind of a surreal experience because I'm like used to kind of listening and just commenting in the chats like J boys and stuff. Like it's a lot of fun hanging and drawing with you, my dude. That's all.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really enjoy having you here. It's always exciting to me when one of the things that's really important to me about doing the stream is I'm going to be doing things anyways, but a big part of the one page idea specifically, but a big part of the engagement with all these other wonderful talented creators including yourself on YouTube and in social media in general that I've come to know. Not only does it help with you get out of that malaise of being locked in your own studio by yourself, but it's kind of really great and fun to interact with a lot of different characters and personalities.
For sure.
All kinds of different places and different levels in their artistic journey. And like the topic of today, they all seem to be following that I got to do something today. I got to do something, that journey of self-expression. And it's nice when you can figure out that you're not alone in that, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a huge interest of mine in general with art. Like I wrote a whole book that was talking pretty openly about my struggles with mental health, and like a lot of that was just with that in mind, like the idea of trying to destigmatize hard conversations about things that a lot of people don't talk about or but experience. And like I think when people experience like depression or things like that, like they tend to feel very isolated. And honestly, I think that parallel runs really well with art too, where it's like it means a lot having a day and age where the first graphic novel I did, I was just like holed up in a studio, like, and like questioning my sanity the whole time, So it's like, it's so fun to be able to like work on pages. It's such a blessing to be able to work on pages and have other creatives, like who are working on stuff, like Jim, who's working on like animations, and you're working on your one pagers, and like it creates a sense of community that's, I think, very encouraging. In what otherwise is a very solitary endeavor.
Well, the whole reason I came on social media in the first place was when the Canadian lockdown started with as Dee Dee Willingham says, the virus. I like how Dee Dee said the virus. When that all started in Canada, because I was managing, a comic book store, and so a lot of my customer base, there was a fair amount of people that their only real social output was coming into the store, and engaging with the staff, and so there's different sort of dynamics in all of that, but when those shutdowns, when those lockdowns came in, here's all these people that you've now just lost that, which might be your only outlet. And so that's when I went on Instagram and YouTube, and I might have had those accounts, I signed up to say, oh, I'll do something with this someday, and never did. But I really came on then in 2021, and at the start of it, and by the end of that year, I'm retired from the store, and just doing a fair amount while I'm working on all these jobs, and getting accustomed to my new situation, because I went through the health concerns then. But that was the whole point of the one pages, is that the people that I knew from the store that were feeling this sort of sense of disconnect, come on my social media, suggest an idea, and let's make a comic page from it. If you've always been interested in wanting to do something with a comic, let's go. And I love that. Things about drawing, and I taught a few people some ideas about writing, and try to encourage others to find their own expression, like their own voice. And now I'm at the point where I put out a page a day, right? And it's just sort of grown and fostered, and a lot of those people that I started with, many of them are off doing their other things. Like now that the world is back to life again, and they're out and about in the world again, which is absolutely perfect. But it was kind of like a call to service. You know what I mean? It was sort of finding a way to connect to my fellow humans. In a time
I get that
kind of upheaval, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think regardless of where people stand, on the whole vaccine question, I definitely have been pretty open about being a pretty far lefty guy, but still at the same time, it's like, even if you thought those shutdowns were sort of necessary, it's like, I definitely experienced the impact of those in a negative way. And the only way that it turned positive for me was, the book I'm working on now. Like, the book I'm working on now started, during the COVID shutdowns, when I was like working from home for a bit. And, one positive that I think came out of it, and I've talked about this before on stream and stuff, is I think we're going to have this really interesting era in time where you're going to see like a crazy output of art that was made during that time, because people were suddenly left with no excuses, in a weird way, for their own output. And I think that's going to lead to like some really interesting stuff,
I think so.
I'm kind of glad I didn't list title that as a conf of mine.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. That's fantastic. Yeah, I won't, whatever I do, I won't publish any books in just a red cover. Just can't do it. Just can't do it. I don't want to start something. Because if there's one thing I learned as a younger man, is if you want to be starting something, you got to be starting something.
You have to be starting something. Would you say that? Have you seen the Courage the Cowardly Dog bit that he did at the Michael Jackson trial?
No.
It's so classic. There's a point where somebody's standing outside. They're like a huge Michael Jackson fan. And they're like, yeah, I wanted to go so bad that I came over here in my pajamas. And he's like, you came in your pajamas? And he's like, yes, I came in my pajamas. And he's like, so you would say that Michael Jackson made you come in your pajamas?
That's horrible.
It just keeps, but he keeps it going for like 15 minutes, and the person's just completely clueless. It's one of the funniest bits.
Excellent. Yeah. There's a Jerry Seinfeld has his whole comedians in cars getting coffee.
It's such a good show.
So
it's better than Jerry's stand-up. It's better than his stand-up. He's a really good conversationalist.
It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic because you get to see these comedians one-on-one in their own element, and they just go for it, right?
Oh yeah.
He's in a small, really tiny car with Norm Macdonald, and Norm Macdonald weighs in on the whole Bill Cosby thing, and it's one of those. I can't believe I'm laughing at this joke, but I can't stop laughing at this joke. You know. That wasn't the worst thing about it. The Bill Cosby there. He's that was a heck of a situation. It's just and Jerry is having a hard time driving as Norm just goes off. Norm Macdonald was truly unappreciated by the larger community when he was alive. I really believe that he was one of those comedians that
he was so good at his delivery, and it's like. It's like he was also such a good joke writer that like he didn't barely have to deliver. All he had to do was just keep a straight face, and it inevitably what he did was funny because he was just that good of a writer. Yeah.
Gary says your joke was outrageous.
Outrageous, Jim Lujan. Outrageous. I am offended, sir. I am offended. Yes.
In a safe space. So there's a great Norm Macdonald bit that he does on Conan O'Brien. He has like the greatest Dostoevsky, I'll never say it right, joke that you've ever heard. And he
has a Dostoevsky joke? Okay, I got to hear this. That sounds hilarious.
Dostoevsky joke. And
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right either.
And it is so good. You have to look it up. I will not do it injustice. But the punchline of that just shuts down the show. Like it's just, I
love it.
And it's so Norm Macdonald in his delivery is just, and it's just understated. Like it's just, he does this big, alive. It's almost like an Aristocats joke because like, the Aristocats is the whole setup for this joke of this absolute outlandish behavior on stage in front of an agent, and you describe whatever crazy insane things that you can, and hopefully don't screw it up to get to the punchline where the agent says, well, what do you call this? The Aristocrats.
Yeah, that's a classic. That is a classic.
But the joke doesn't make sense here because in North America we don't have aristocrats. Right? That's a British royal system thing, and which makes it even funnier in my mind. But
yeah,
it's that level of a joke where he does this whole discourse of an impoverished family and the hardships and the coldness and of my soul matches the bitter wind of winter, and it just goes on and on and on for a punchline that just makes you go, oh my goodness, I sat through that for this. Fantastic.
I love it.
Absolutely fantastic.
That's amazing. Where is Jim at on his movie? And are you all done with your audio bits for it?
Oh, he still sends me stuff. It's fantastic. Like he sends me
because it sounds like to me like it's going to be the epic of Jim Lujan, like the one of
he's going for a
his
70-minute movie.
That's
right? Like
crazy.
he's doing a 70-minute movie specifically. Many of his projects have duration to them, but this one is a specific 70-minute narrative, and he's just shining on everything he produces for it. And it's really funny to watch how organic his process is. And okay, so you recorded the parts for that thing. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to use it for something else, but I'm not going to use it for this. Okay, right? He goes, I hope you don't mind. I'm like, don't mind at all. Could you read this for me? Sure. There's just no problem. I'll do whatever else instead. And
Yeah,
because his flow is so dynamic and so flexible.
yeah,
And you wouldn't think that an animator, especially somebody who doesn't have the empowerment of a number of other animators with him in his studio,
yeah,
you wouldn't think that he would be so organic in his production. But he'll
yeah.
turn left if he needs to turn left.
And it kind of only makes sense. Again, like I think Jim's cartoons are so hilarious, and the idea of him being so organic with it, when you watch it and it seems just so planned for like comedy, like everything about it just kind of perfectly paced for like the bits that he's presenting. And then you talk to Jim, and that makes sense that he's organic, because like we were mentioning, he's just one of the funniest people you'll ever talk to. Just off the cuff, like just his mind is like a comedy mind. That's amazing.
I highly recommend anybody to watch his "Hey Man, how's your movie going?"
Yeah, I agree. Watch the one with Christopher.
Well, the one that thanks, Josh, but the one that gets me is that opening scene that he shows, and it's foul. Hey man, foul! Like that whole scene. You fouled me, man. I can't stop laughing about that. I've seen it like a half dozen times already, and it just cracks me up. And then, of course, there's the legend that is the voice talent of Gary Hodges, because his line in that lives rent free in my brain, and it's just one line in that scene, and it just like it's always there. It's like it's always there. And I always get it wrong. I always hey, is this what we're doing now? And everybody corrects me because I know I'm getting it wrong every time, but it's just stuck in my head.
I like it.
The impact of it, anyways. Gary saw Norm. There you go. Thank you. I'm glad Gary's laughing about that. I got a chance to see Norm as well, and wow, his delivery. Hey, remember when parades used to mean something? What a way to open a conversation. Norm Macdonald's the only comedian that's done a 20-minute bit about serial killers being short-sighted. I just,
his premises were so funny. He just had such interesting observations, I love that kind of mind. I think that's why I like Curb Your Enthusiasm so much. It's like the same kind of like Norm and now I'm blanking out on his name, the dude from Curb who wrote Seinfeld. What's his name? My goodness.
Oh, for what's
he was in like a Woody Allen film too. I can't remember. Anyhow, whatever his name is.
He's also the voice of Costanza. Can't stand you.
Yeah.
Get in here. You eat the soup. You eat the bowl. What's that?
It's gonna kill me that I can't remember his name. But anyhow, like it's
Larry
that
David.
unique.
Thank you, Gary. Larry David.
So Larry David has the same kind of appeal where he looks at the world like you hear him on an interview and he's just inherently hilarious, even if he's not trying to be, because he has like such a unique take on the world, And I feel like Norm had that for sure too, where it's just this really off take that's just the funniest thing in the world. I think that's, I don't know, there's something about that sort of comedy that I think is just incredible, and to
Larry
me,
David,
like my favorite kind of stuff.
Larry David did a funny bit that Richard Lewis turned into a routine, and Richard Lewis is that, I don't know what I'm doing lately. Lately, my therapist stops answering my calls. That guy, and he's always touching his head. You ever met Larry David for lunch? Don't do it. Larry David, we're going to get together at 6:01 exactly on Tuesday, 6:01. And, you know, it's 6:15. I'm like, where's Larry? I call him up. I'm on my way down. Don't worry, I'll be there. You know, 7:20, he arrives. He gets sits down. What have you been eating bread this whole time? And he gets a phone call. I got to take this. Answers the phone call. What? Now? Okay, listen, I got to go. But this has been good. Right after we ordered the food, gets the phone call and he leaves. And he sits me with a $1,000 bill. that's eating with Larry David. I'm like, part of me just thinks that that's a bit by Larry David. Like I just
yeah, it does. It's interesting. Yeah, that's crazy. Man, I am making a lot of progress right now. So thank you for having me on. It's half of why I got into YouTube in the first place was like originally like my friend Kevin Cross, who started the hundreds and stuff. He just kind of invited me to hop on some live streams with him. And what I found was I would just get so much cartooning done that it was like it became very quickly addictive, you know, because of the thing I was talking about where it's like usually when you're doing comics, it's kind of like done in isolation, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like it was such a nice change up. But I love this kind of thing because it feels like kind of like hanging out in a bullpen and just, you know, working on comics, you know? That's the best.
Yeah. Like this is the thing that I keep expressing to people that I appreciate the most about the acceptance into this larger group of people that have these great outputs is that, you know, I'm afforded that opportunity to just work with other artists, even though we might not be working on something together. It's just working with other people. But it's something to do a little bit more of, you know, with whenever I get the opportunity to do it. I'm going to have to start doing that whole going on. I have to learn how to do this where to go on different sites and streams and podcasts and stuff and talk about the new book. And, And I find it daunting.
Yeah.
Even though
I'm curious about that. I'm so curious about that, like the book and all of it. Like, yeah. Well, maybe you'll have to talk off stream, but I'm curious, like, who the publisher is, what your plan is. It sounds like you were recently kind of like having to boil down which one pagers you're going to put in there. It's really fascinating.
I had to pick the first 60 pages to put in one. And it's funny because when I did the one in the portrait format, right? And this is the comic extravaganza because the portrait format of books is a comic format.
Yeah.
And but I've stepped away from that, and then I keep doing all these landscape portrait pages, and I'm trying to challenge the convention of how we tell sequential stories.
Yeah.
And by pushing it into this different format, and so it's not just sort of caught up in being a comic per se, right?
Yeah.
Because I find that as an independent, if you don't sit, I don't really necessarily sit in the comic niche as a storyteller, because it might be using visual and textual elements together, but it doesn't have an autobiographical or structured story narrative. It's one thing after another, after another, after another. And
I think that's great, though. You know, like I've told you about, I used to know this guy, Jesse Recklaw, who I knew in Portland, and he did a comic called Slow Wave. And every time I'm thinking about your comics, he's the one guy that comes to mind because he used to do this comic where he'd ask people to tell him their dreams. And he had a website, and he'd take like their dreams and then he'd just convert them into like this, 4-panel strip. And they were some of the most surreal, interesting ones. His process kind of reminds me of yours, you know, a lot. So I feel like there is a tradition of short comics, but I do think what you're doing is very unique to comics. You know, I think I'm not surprised you picked up a publisher for it, because it's just like, it's super fascinating what you're doing, you know? And I think I feel like there's still, I feel like the whole autobiography thing, as somebody who does autobiographical stuff, is so misunderstood by people because it's like I do autobiographical stuff, but so does Scott Serkland, who's doing, Young and the Dead. It's like everything an artist does is to an extent like autobiographical.
Yeah. You can't help but put some of yourself into whatever you're working on.
Yeah. So I feel like people should get used to what you're doing because comics are a wide medium, and I think the fact that you're doing something that's different is good. Like it's good for the health of the indie community.
The reference to the artificiality of going on different things and talking about my book from the marketing aesthetic is the reason I say that is the artificiality of it, or that I'm weirded out by having to engage in that process, is because when I'm talking with a lot of you guys like yourself or Jim or Gary, it's so organic. It's just natural. We're just chatting.
Yeah.
And talking about and referring to each other's projects largely out of respect and interest of our own.
Yeah.
And so to go on something where it's like, and you've just turned into the comic hour, and we've got a special guest tonight. It's the greatest ever runs event known as Run T Man. But hi, how are you?
No, it is rough with like actual press and stuff. Like I can't stand it. I'm awful. Yeah.
So
we answered it. I don't know if Christopher answered it. Christopher, have you ever worn a fedora?
Not a fedora guy. Never will be a fedora guy. Both of my sons like the nice little presentation hat like Paul does. I cannot do it. Never could. I've got a big head. And I'm a large person. And so finding a hat that doesn't look like it's all squinched up on me in the first place is a challenge. But just
I feel like you've got more of an Ian MacKaye vibe going on, like you're rocking the
the baseball cap or the toque. That's me, right?
Yeah.
Gary says something as well. I've been taking a lovely break from streaming, but once I'm back to it, I'd love to have you on. Oh, I'd love to be on, Gary.
And Christopher, you're always welcome on my stream as well, for sure.
Oh,
so
great.
Anytime.
Super.
Yeah. Because I'm going to be streaming an insane amount, the next few days.
The idea of being on streams with you guys is it doesn't feel like it's I really appreciate to be on, but it's not the same thing about going on these streams of people that I haven't had the opportunity to come to know. Or
it's the awkward, like having to do it on demand, having like be on and promote. Often they're like timed segments too, which for me is like I die at that kind of thing because I'm very rambly, and it's like just the idea of having to stay cohesive and do a little pitch in like 2 seconds. It's just like so much. It's not my favorite thing. It's definitely not my favorite thing.
I've listened in on some, and I've heard some of the stupidest, like on some different random ones, and I wouldn't name them.
Yeah.
But I've listened in on some, and I hear some of the weirdest. I said stupidest, but I mean like the most random thing is like, like the one show had a guy on who's this creative fella, and the one host says, well, I haven't read your books, but I really like the color blue, and it's really popping out of this cover. And I'm like, did that guy really say that? I haven't read your books, but I like blue, and you got blue on the cover. Like, how does that help the dude? Or I heard another one where, well, I don't really, I haven't read this. I know that such and such in the show is going to read it, because he reads everything, but I've almost completed a complete run of Spawn. And as soon as I heard that, I almost fell into because I can't stand the comic Spawn. And
oh no,
it's like that's his whole qualifier in comics is that. And I'm like, well, how to get onto this stream next, you know? And so when I was looking through,
So Christopher, you have to go on that stream, and just knowing that stream, now you have to just be like, okay, so my one-page comic is like Spawn in the sense that, and the guy's like, oh, it's like Spawn. Oh, I'm on. I understand exactly what you're saying. You know, you just got to be your own Stan Lee.
Cape. Oh yeah, yeah. Every guy in this book has a cape, and he hangs out in an alley. You'll love it.
Yeah.
I went to a bunch of these group chat streams and looking into them and trying to find something, and a lot of them had, you know, tenured professionals of Marvel and DC, and or indie tenured professionals that have, you know, a number of titles under the belt, and I found every one of these things to be just so, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just so like, artificial is the word that comes to mind, because it's either about watch me draw, huh? As we smack talk or bro talk each other like that. I found that a lot. Like, boy, you're pretty good drawing those men's pec muscles there, bub. You know, and that's what my wife says. Is your wife model for you? And it's like, why am I watching this? Or and then eventually I came across an episode of Artcasters, and you and Scott were talking about something, and I wish for the life of me I could remember what it was. And it was I don't know who it was, but I think it was Jim that was on the show, because you three were talking to somebody who was on a cruise, and they took an aside, and they're talking on their phone or something, sitting in a hallway outside of their cabin room on some boat cruise.
Huh.
And for some reason, I think it was Jim, but I'm like, these guys are just talking.
Yeah.
And what a refreshing difference that is. Like, they're legitimately talking about an interest in the making of things.
Yeah.
And, you know, nobody has challenged anybody's masculinity or anything like that. Gary, Jim's question of the day is, how do you feel on fedoras? Would you rock one, or have you rocked one in the past? So I found that more compelling to me, that here's these guys that are just talking about the process of making. And then I checked out Scott's channel, because he had been the lead voice that night. And then I was like, wow, he's got some cool tutorials on here. I'm liking these. And then he says, sign up for my newsletter and get the Comic Maker's Hand Kit. And so I did. And I'm like, this is the best pencil brush I've ever seen. Right? This is fantastic. And so I thanked Scott, and I said, I really appreciate that. So I, you know, and his address was in his social stuff. So I mailed him the one-page book. I'm like, hey, thanks. I really appreciate that. Here's a copy of one of my things.
Yeah.
And then that's when Scott reached back out to me and said, okay, we got to talk. You know?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, you know,
I ended up meeting everybody.
Yeah, and I can see why he was into it, because it's like, it's not a small feat, that book. It's a really impressive book, and the variety of style and approach in it is just so refreshing. It's a really great idea. Yeah, and if you guys are watching Christopher's channel and you haven't picked up that book, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, the new one will be out within a couple of months. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be featuring many of the pages that'll be featuring that. They'll have suggestions from some of the people that might pick up that book. Like, it's going to be kind of fun.
I love it.
You know, Philip says there's a young animator I used to follow on YouTube that does that. Are you talking about the whole, hey, all right, oh, that's the worst. It's the worst. Or I watched one that had three guys, and I respect their output. I respect their work. But then I'm watching their dialogue between these three mainstream Marvel DC guys, and it was 45 minutes of guy riffing before they even remotely got close to touching the topic that they're promoting this chat with. And I'm like, what? Why? I'm not watching this. I'm not, I don't want to watch this. So yeah, so Aircasters has something special about it because it really is a lot of creative individuals that are legitimately interested in what each other are doing, and that's a gift.
Yeah, I
Gary
love
has
the
a different
community
response.
for that reason.
I do own a fedora. I have worn it on occasion, but wouldn't go so far as to say I rocked it.
Yeah, I don't. I had a brief season in my life where I got into swing dancing.
Lori and I have done that, ballroom dancing.
Yeah, and it was swing dancing and
swing dancing. Sorry.
Yeah. Which is like, it is a style of ballroom dancing, and
just a lot more physical.
Yeah, but like when I was in high school, I was into swing dancing, and I had a fedora back then. So when I wasn't like all punked out and stuff, I would literally just wear like old timey suits and do swing dancing and stuff, which I haven't done in years. But it was really fun. It was quite a rush to do.
Well, that was a sort of resurgence of that type of music at the time. There were some really fun bands coming out, like the Squirrel Nut Zippers, and
I still love Squirrel Nut Zippers. By the way, of those bands, I think they're one of the few that really hold up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think they're the best. Named after a firework.
So
the Squirrel Nut Zipper is the firework that goes zip, 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 like that.
And that singer, the woman who sang with them, I can't remember her name.
Yeah. She sounds
such a
like
great voice.
Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
In a weird kind of way, because they put a lid on what's that just sound?
Yeah.
That little sound. Like she's singing in a tin cup. Right?
Yep.
All right,
pretty much, yeah.
We've been going for almost 2 hours.
Awesome.
And I gotta wrap up at this point to do my
your day.
Yeah. The Fedora Hall of Fame. Number 1, Paul Pate. Number 2, Indiana Jones.
Nice.
Number 3, John Taylor, 1982. A Duran Duran reference? What?
So deep, such 4. A deep cut.
That just makes me hungry for more of it. Hungry like a wolf. Anyway, so number 4, Al Capone, and number 5, Humphrey Bogart. There you go.
Love it.
There you go.
Bogart, I'd put like I gotta say Bogart should be a little higher on that list, don't you think?
I don't know. The John Taylor 1982 is in the third position. I really expected that he would have fit Martin Gore in there, but from Depeche Mode, but he didn't wear a fedora. He wore that sort of Spanish flat-brimmed hat. So I guess John Taylor's the guy to go to.
Nice.
When you got to get it on, that's the guy you refer to. No? Power Station reference? Anybody? Bueller? Yeah. Terrible. All right. Well, I'm gonna book out for today. I'm gonna finish this three-word prompt page later on. I'll probably pop in and say hi. But we'll be back tomorrow at 2:00. Josh, is there anything you want to say to people before we leave? You want to talk about where they can find you in that?
Yeah. So I'm Joshua Kemble on YouTube. I'll sometimes jokingly go by Kremble or the Kremblinator. Apparently, and that's Christopher's loving distinction name for me. And other than that, like just check out my YouTube. I'll probably be streaming in like maybe an hour. So thanks for having me on, Christopher. I love your channel, and if you guys haven't yet, consider picking up 2 stories, which is my confessional autobiographical graphic novel about faith and mental illness that tries to destigmatize hard conversations. It's very autobiographical. And then Jacob's Apartment, which there's a really nice review on Christopher's channel of that book. And I'd encourage you guys to pick those up, but also support indie comics. First thing you should do if you're watching Christopher's channel, pick up the one-page comic Extravaganza, support indie comics, right? Yeah. But thanks for having me on. It was a fun conversation. It's always fun hanging out.
Thanks for being on. You should start, before we go, Philip says you should start every stream with. Let's get ready to crumble.
Let's get ready to crumble.
Excellent. Thanks for coming out, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow at 2, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.